The 50-30-20 rule, the only budget you'll ever need. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't earn enough, but because nobody ever taught them this one rule. Most people fail at budgeting not because they lack discipline, but because their budget is too complicated to actually stick to. Spreadsheets with 47 categories, apps that require 20 minutes of daily tracking, systems that feel like a second job just to maintain. And when the system becomes too hard to follow, people abandon it completely and go back to spending without thinking. There is a simpler way, one rule, 3 numbers, and it works whether someone earns $30,000 a year or $300,000. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. And by the end of this video, the entire approach to managing money will be permanently clearer. There's also a free Google Sheets template in the description that does all the calculations automatically, but more on that at the end. Before diving in, this is Money Made Simple, the channel that breaks down personal finance into clear, straightforward videos that anyone can follow and actually use. If that sounds useful, hit subscribe. It's free, and there's a new video every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, back to the rule that changes everything. The 50-30-20 rule was popularized by Harvard bankruptcy law professor Elizabeth Warren in her personal finance book, All Your Worth, long before she entered politics. The concept is almost offensively simple. Take-home pay, the actual amount that lands in the bank account after taxes, gets divided into 3 categories and 3 categories only. 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, 20% goes to savings and debt repayment. That's the entire framework. No subcategories, no daily tracking, no complicated spreadsheets, just 3 buckets that every single dollar gets sorted into every single month. The reason this works where other budgets fail is that it matches how human psychology actually processes financial decisions. Most people can hold 3 categories in their head simultaneously without effort. Most people cannot hold 47. Simplicity isn't a compromise in budgeting, it's the entire strategy. The first bucket is needs, 50% of take-home pay. Needs are expenses that genuinely cannot be eliminated without serious consequences. Housing, utilities, groceries, transportation to work, minimum debt payments, health insurance. These are the non-negotiables, the expenses that exist whether anyone wants them to or not. Notice what is not on that list. Streaming services, gym memberships, dining out, coffee subscriptions. Those feel necessary, but they are not. The test for any expense is simple. Would serious harm or genuine financial consequence result from eliminating it? If the answer is no, it belongs in the wants category, not the needs category. That distinction alone changes how most people see their spending. Here is where most people discover their first uncomfortable truth. When they honestly calculate their actual needs, the number frequently exceeds 50%. A household earning $5,000 per month after tax with a $2,000 rent payment is already at 40% before utilities, groceries, or transportation are added. If needs exceed 50%, the problem is structural. The fixed costs are too high relative to the income. And the solution is not to adjust the percentages to make the numbers feel better. The solution is to either reduce fixed costs, moving to cheaper housing, selling a vehicle, refinancing debt, or increase income. Adjusting the percentages is how people convince themselves an unsustainable financial structure is fine when it isn't. A quick budgeting tip here. When going through expenses for the first time, write every single one down before deciding which category it belongs in. Seeing the full list before categorizing prevents the brain from unconsciously protecting favorite expenses by mislabeling them as needs. The second bucket is wants, 30% of take-home pay. This is the category that makes the 50-30-20 rule actually livable rather than punishing. Wants include dining out, entertainment, travel, hobbies, clothing beyond basics, subscriptions, and anything purchased for enjoyment rather than pure necessity. The 30% allocation is deliberately generous. One of the primary reasons people abandon budgets entirely is that strict systems eliminate all enjoyment from spending, which creates resentment, which leads to binge spending, which destroys the entire budget. By building a significant wants allowance directly into the framework, the 50-30-20 rule removes the guilt from spending on things that bring genuine value to life. The only rule within the wants category is staying under 30%. How that 30% gets spent is entirely personal. Someone who values travel over restaurants will allocate completely differently than someone who values dining out over gym memberships. The framework doesn't judge the choices, it just sets the boundary. And that boundary is what makes the whole system work. Take someone earning $4,000 a month after tax. Their wants allowance is $1,200 per month. That is a real, meaningful amount of money to spend on life's enjoyment. Guilt-free, no tracking required, no justification needed. That's the power of building the enjoyment in rather than treating it as something to eliminate. The third bucket is the most important one, and the one most people get to last. 20% towards savings and debt repayment beyond minimums. This is where actual financial security gets built. Not the 50%, not the 30%. This 20% is the number that determines whether money works or whether money just disappears. The order within this 20% matters significantly. Financial planners generally recommend this priority sequence. First, build a starter emergency fund of $1,000. Second, pay off high interest debt, anything above 7 to 8% interest rate, as aggressively as possible. Third, contribute enough to a retirement account to capture any employer match, because an employer match is an instant 100% return that no investment can reliably beat. Fourth, build a full emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Fifth, invest consistently in low-cost index funds for long-term wealth building. Here's the number that makes this category so powerful. Take someone earning $4,000 a month after tax. 20% is $800 automatically invested every single month. At historical average market returns of 10%, that $800 per month becomes over $600,000 in 25 years. Not from a higher salary, not from picking the right stocks, not from timing the market perfectly, just from directing 20% automatically every single month and leaving it completely alone. The critical word there is automatically. The single most effective implementation of this entire category is to set up an automatic transfer the day after payday so the 20% moves to savings before it can be spent on anything else. Every behavioral finance study on saving patterns reaches the same conclusion. Automation is the difference between people who build wealth and people who intend to build wealth. Traditional budgets fail for 3 well-documented reasons. They are too detailed to maintain consistently over months and years. They eliminate enjoyment entirely, creating a psychological backlash that leads to abandonment. And they require daily active management, which the vast majority of people stop doing within weeks. The 50-30-20 rule directly addresses all 3. It is simple enough to run mentally without opening a single app. It preserves 30% for personal enjoyment, removing the deprivation effect completely. And it requires active management only once, when setting up the automatic savings transfer. After that, the system largely runs itself in the background while life continues normally. Research from the National Endowment for Financial Education found that people who follow a simple budgeting framework are 3 times more likely to report feeling financially secure than people with no system at all, regardless of income level. 3 times. Not because they earn more. Because they have a clear structure that gives every dollar a direction. Implementing this takes less than 30 minutes and requires no special tools or apps. Here are the exact steps. Step 1. Calculate actual take-home pay, not the gross salary number, the real number that arrives in the bank account each month after all taxes and deductions. Step 2, multiply that number by 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2 to get the 3 target amounts. Step 3, list every current monthly expense and sort each one honestly into needs, wants, or savings. Be ruthlessly honest about which category each expense actually belongs in, not which category feels most comfortable. Step 4, compare actual spending in each category to the targets. The gaps are the information. They show exactly where the financial structure needs adjustment and by how much. Step 5, set up an automatic transfer of 20% to a separate savings account the day after payday. Do this before anything else. Savings happen first. Everything else adjusts around them. Now, here's where the free template comes in. Everything just described, the income calculation, the 3 splits, the expense tracker, the category comparison, is already built into a free Google Sheets template that's linked in the description. Just open it, enter monthly, take-home pay, and it automatically calculates all 3 target numbers and tracks spending against them in real time. No formulas needed, no setup required. It works on any device and takes about 2 minutes to personalize. To get it for free, just click the link in the description, enter an email address, and it gets sent directly to the inbox. It also means being first to know when new tools and resources get added to the channel. No spam, just the template and occasional updates when something genuinely useful gets released. The 50-30-20 rule works, not because it is mathematically perfect, but because it is simple enough to actually follow consistently. It gives every dollar a direction, it preserves space for real enjoyment, and it builds the 20% habit that separates people who accumulate wealth from people who accumulate expenses and wonder where the money went. The difference between financial stress and financial security is almost never income. It is almost always structure. A clear, simple structure applied consistently over years produces results that no amount of financial complexity or clever investing can match without it. And if this is the first time landing on this channel, welcome to Money Made Simple. This is where complex money topics get broken down into clear, actionable videos that anyone can follow. No finance degree required, no confusing jargon, just straightforward personal finance explanations that actually make a difference. New videos go up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering everything from budgeting and investing to credit scores, compound interest, and building real long-term wealth from scratch. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so nothing gets missed, because every video on this channel is designed to be worth more than the time it takes to watch it. The free Google Sheets template is in the description. It takes 2 minutes to set up, does everything automatically, and is completely free. The link is right below, drop in an email address, and it arrives instantly. And the next video covers something that quietly affects every single person watching this, regardless of income or budget, why money loses its value every year without making a single bad financial decision, and what can realistically be done about it. That one is worth watching before it's too late.